They say you remember the exact moment your life changes forever. For me, it was a Tuesday. A forgettable one. I had just folded the last pair of socks. Yes, I fold my socks. Sue me. When my wife of 11 years looked up from her phone and said, "He told me I laugh more when I'm not with you." The words didn't land like a grenade. No, they drifted down slow, like ash after the fire. I blinked, waiting for the punchline. But all I got was the clink of her fork against the plate and the soft hum of the fridge trying to fill the silence. I asked, careful to keep my voice even. She didn't look up, just kept slicing her chicken, slow and deliberate. "Don't take it personally," she added, like she was offering a weather report. "You'll get over it." I stood. She looked up, finally. Like I'd broken some unspoken agreement to stay passive, to stay predictable. "You're being dramatic," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm being honest. There's a difference." I walked out the front door. No shoes. No jacket. Just socks and the kind of clarity that doesn't need a storm to make itself known. It wasn't until I got to the end of the block, toes numb from the sidewalk, that the questions started hitting. Who was he? How long? And why did it feel like I was the only one who didn't know I'd been voted off the island? But the kicker? The part that really got me? She didn't come after me. She never does. I came back the next morning, not to talk, not to reconcile. I came for my wallet. That was it. My plan was to get in, grab it, and get out before she could throw more emotional shrapnel in my direction. She was in the kitchen making smoothies. Strawberries, oat milk, the usual, like it was just another Thursday. Like she hadn't casually confessed to emotional treason over dinner the night before. "You're being weird," she said without looking up. "Are we really doing the passive-aggressive thing again?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not while the vision of her, smiling at some other guy's jokes, still played on a loop in my head. The kind of laugh she used to save for me, back when I was still worth performing for. I found my wallet on the nightstand. And something else. A square envelope. Cream-colored. Thick paper. No name on it, but it didn't need one. I opened it, hands steady like they didn't know they were supposed to shake. "Join us in celebrating the engagement of Tessa Marie Whitlock and Rory James Calder." Engagement. While still married. To me. Confetti. That wasn't from a birthday party. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a celebration of my replacement. The funny part? I still wasn't mad. I was fascinated. Like watching a magician reveal the trick and realizing the rabbit was never real to begin with. Back in the kitchen, she sipped her smoothie and scrolled her phone. "You find it?" she asked. I held up my wallet. "Yup," I said. That's all I gave her. Not a single word more. Because the silence? Oh, the silence was just starting to get loud. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my truck, windows fogging, heart pacing like it was trying to catch a bus I missed a year ago. I stared at that engagement invitation like it might vanish if I blinked long enough. Spoiler, it didn't. I thought about calling someone, my brother, my best friend, the bartender down at Marlowe's who always pours a little heavy on the second round. But what do you say? "Hey, just wondering, you ever been engaged while married?" Asking for a friend. Morning came with that muted gray sky that always seems to arrive with bad news. I walked into the house one last time. She was humming. Humming. That same smug tune she used to hum when she knew she'd won an argument before it started. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't interested in a shouting match. I was interested in understanding. Because if I was going to be gutted, I at least wanted to know which knife she used. Later that day, I got a text. From her sister, Lorna. Out of nowhere. No preamble, no explanation, just a screenshot. Tessa. In a red dress. Laughing. Leaning into a man's chest like she belonged there. His hand on her waist, his face half shadowed but unmistakably not mine. The caption? She said yes. Suddenly, everything clicked. The confetti. The smugness. The absence. All of it. And the kicker? My name wasn't even on the divorce papers because there were none. She wasn't replacing me. She was deleting me. And in that moment, I knew I wouldn't just leave quietly. Not anymore. Not after this. I drove for 2 hours that night with no destination. Just me, the highway, and a playlist I couldn't hear over the sound of everything falling apart in my head. It's funny how quiet heartbreak is. Hollywood lied. There's no swelling music, no dramatic montage. Just mile markers and that one voicemail you won't delete, because pain's easier when it has a soundtrack. Somewhere between nowhere and nowhere else, I pulled over at a truck stop. Sat in the lot with a bag of trail mix I didn't eat, flipping through the photos Lorna sent. There were more. Different angles. Same man. Same woman. Same lie in 1,000 pixels. That's when I realized I didn't need more proof. I needed a plan. The next morning, I made a list. Not of revenge. Not yet. That came later. This was inventory. The assets. The shared accounts. The things I owned. The password she never thought I'd change because I'd always been the nice one. By noon, she still hadn't texted me. I suppose she figured I'd slink back like usual, swallow my pride like it was part of breakfast. She'd always said I was resilient, which is code for you tolerate my nonsense better than most. I didn't go home. I went to the bank. Hi, I'd like to remove an authorized user from my account, I said. The teller smiled, unaware she was witnessing the first step in a quiet mutiny. That night, I slept at my cousin Nate's place. He asked no questions, just handed me a beer and turned on the game like nothing was off. I didn't tell him yet. Didn't have to. I think he saw it in the way I sat, back straight, eyes calm, like a man who just walked out of a burning building with the insurance check already signed. The next day, I saw the dress. Her red one, hanging in the laundry room at home. I'd gone back while she was out, not to confront her, just to retrieve a few things. The invitation was still on the counter. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand. No RSVP section. Bold of them to assume I wouldn't show. But I had no intention of going to the party. Not physically, at least. Emotionally? I'd been there for weeks. I'd seen the toasts, heard the clinks of glasses, felt the sting of second-hand laughter echoing through empty promises. I stood in the house that used to be mine and looked around. The walls still held my framed diplomas. The shelf still carried my favorite novels. But everything else had been rearranged. The pillows. The coffee mugs. The energy. You ever feel like your ghost's been living somewhere you're not dead yet? Before I left, I checked one last thing, her calendar. She still kept a physical one, hung on the fridge like it was 2003. I flipped to next month. And there it was. Weekend getaway, Rory. A little heart drawn next to it. That was all I needed. You see, the thing about people like Tessa? They never expect consequences. They think silence is compliance. That if you haven't exploded, you're too spineless to retaliate. But what they don't understand is, silence isn't surrender. It's reconnaissance. I went back to Nate's that evening and opened my laptop. VPN on. Backup drives in place. Everything she'd ever sent me, emails, documents, her resume I helped edit, the photos I took for her last campaign, all of it, I archived. Then I did something petty. I removed her bio from my website. She never noticed when I added her. She'd definitely notice when she was gone. That night, Nate asked, "So what are you going to do?" I took a long sip from the bottle and stared at the ceiling. I'm going to let her think she won. Because people like her? They lose themselves the moment the mirror stops agreeing with them. And nothing reflects reality better than absence. 3 days passed. No word. Then came the email. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. The next morning, I think we got off track. I want to clear the air. Still nothing. By that evening, "I miss you." There it was. The signal flare from a woman who expected her ghost to come crawling back with flowers and forgiveness. But I wasn't her ghost anymore. I was the outline of a man she erased and forgot had a pen of his own. So I did what any good ghost does. I disappeared even harder. Blocked her on socials. Transferred the lease to my name only. Canceled our joint Netflix. Yes, the real dagger. And then? Then I made a copy of that engagement invite. Scanned it. Watermarked it. Sent it to myself. One day, maybe I'd frame it. Not out of bitterness. Out of documentation. Proof that the villain in my story didn't wear horns, she wore heels, smiled wide, and toasted to new beginnings while standing on the ashes of the old. I always thought pain would make me loud. That when the betrayal hit, I'd scream. Break things. Maybe punch a wall just to prove I could feel something besides humiliation. But I didn't. I just got precise. I spent the next week finishing what she thought she'd already started. While she was probably showing off her new ring, I was disassembling the life she left behind. Quietly. Completely. I started with the joint stuff, the shared accounts, the backup drives, the automatic payments tied to my name. All of it. Gone. I rerouted what was mine and let hers hang in limbo, just long enough for her to notice. Then I shut it down like a store with no warning. Tessa was the kind of person who thought maintenance was magic. Wi-Fi, power bills, streaming services, all things that just happened on their own, like sunshine or good moods. She never realized it was me behind the curtain, making sure the show went on. Until the curtain vanished. The emails started again, then the texts, then a voicemail. Hey, the house internet isn't working, and I can't seem to log into our Hulu. Also, the power bill bounced. Can you just call me? Or text me? Please. That please wasn't kindness. It was logistics wrapped in desperation. Her life was unraveling, not in chaos, but in mild inconveniences, and that's how you really get to someone like her. Not through shouting, through subtle dismantling. Meanwhile, her engagement party loomed closer. I knew the date. I had the time. I even knew the guest list, courtesy of her sister's Instagram story. Bless those people who can't help but document every brunch like it's a historic event. I wasn't going. Of course not. But I did make a contribution. I called the bakery listed on the RSVP card, gave them the event number, said I was the groom, and changed the message on the custom engagement cake. Instead of "Forever starts here," it would now read, "Sometimes temporary means you." That one wasn't about revenge. That was just art. I'd already made peace with the fact that she had moved on. What I hadn't made peace with was how easily she assumed I'd be her emotional insurance, there if it failed, forgiving if it didn't. A husband by default, a backup plan with a pulse. But here's the thing about backup plans, sometimes they upgrade themselves. Around that time, I got a message from someone unexpected, Carly, one of her friends, the one who always seemed too kind to stay in Tessa's orbit. I know this is weird, the message said, but I saw the invite. Just want you to know I didn't go. And I'm sorry. For all of it. I didn't reply. But I appreciated it. Because honesty, even late, is still worth more than silence wrapped in smiles. By midweek, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. See, Tessa had always kept her passwords saved on a synced cloud account we shared. She never changed them, said it was too much of a hassle. That laziness became a door. I didn't dig through private messages or do anything illegal. That's not my style. But I did find her Pinterest board. The one she'd titled, Our Life. Still full of wedding stuff. Still using the last name she took from me. She hadn't even made a new one. It wasn't just insulting. It was poetic. The woman rewriting her future forgot to delete the past first. So I did her a favor. I logged in and renamed the board, Expired Inventory. Deleted nothing. Just renamed it. That was the beginning of the unraveling. 2 days before the engagement party, she called. Not texted. Called. I stared at the screen for a solid minute before answering. Not because I wanted to talk, but because some things deserve a record. Hello. She exhaled. One of those long, breathy sighs she used when trying to sound composed. Why are you doing this? I didn't reply. Let the silence fill in all the punctuation. I didn't mean to hurt you, she continued. It just happened. You got engaged while married, I said flatly. That's not a fender bender, Tessa. That's demolition. She paused, probably hoping I'd say something emotional. Something that proved I still cared. But I didn't. Not the way she wanted. You were always so good at making things stable, she said quietly. I thought I needed more excitement. But this mess, it doesn't feel exciting. That's not my problem anymore, I said. You can't just disappear, she snapped suddenly. You don't get to rewrite the story. I laughed. Not loud. Just enough. I didn't rewrite anything, I said. I just stopped participating in yours. Click. She didn't call back. The next morning, Carly messaged again. Party's been postponed, she wrote. No explanation given. Just a lot of red wine and people awkwardly checking their phones. I smiled. Just a little. Then I got in the car and drove. Not to make a scene. Just to breathe. Because revenge isn't about fireworks. It's about freedom. And I was finally starting to feel weightless. She didn't text after the party fell through. Didn't call either. I expected something. Rage, tears, that classic pivot to guilt. But what I got was quieter than I imagined. Nothing. And that, strangely, said everything. Tessa was the type of person who hated unresolved endings. She needed clarity, closure, control. If she ghosted someone, it was with a follow-up paragraph explaining why they should feel lucky. If she broke something, she cleaned it up before anyone noticed. So this silence? This told me I'd finally managed something she couldn't rewrite. I'd left the chapter blank, and it was driving her insane. That weekend, I packed the last of my things from Nate's place. He offered to let me stay longer, even cleared space in his garage for some boxes I hadn't touched since our 3rd year of marriage. I thanked him, but I needed my own place. I needed walls that didn't remember. The apartment I found was small, a 2nd-floor unit with creaky floors and questionable plumbing. The kind of place where you can hear your neighbor sneeze and the window screens don't quite fit. But it was mine. Unfurnished, unassuming, unapologetic. It came with a view of a laundromat in the back of a taco truck. I found that strangely comforting. The first night there, I slept on a mattress on the floor and stared at the ceiling. No photos on the walls. No framed moments curated for social media approval. Just air and echoes. That's when it really hit me. I had no idea who I was outside of her. That wasn't self-pity. That was inventory. For years, I'd been the reliable one. The planner. The fixer. The man who made dinner and folded his socks and kept the fridge stocked with oat milk because she liked it in her coffee. Not because I did. Because she did. So I sat there, trying to remember the last decision I made entirely for myself. It took longer than I care to admit. The next morning, I went to the DMV. Got my address changed. It was such a small thing, 15 minutes, a new ID photo, the woman behind the desk telling me to tilt your chin up a little, but it felt like the beginning of something. Then I stopped by a furniture store and bought the cheapest, ugliest couch I could find. Not because I liked it, but because it didn't match anything we ever owned. It was orange. Not burnt orange. Not rustic. Just orange. Loud and unapologetic. I sat on it like it owed me money. Later that week, I got a package. No return address. But I didn't need one. Inside, a photo. Us, on our honeymoon, standing in front of the little lighthouse where she made me promise we'd never stop laughing. She was in a sundress. I was in flip-flops and a shirt 2 sizes too big. We looked, unfinished, like a couple still becoming something. On the back, she'd written, "I didn't know how to miss you until it was too late." I stared at the handwriting. It was neat, tidy, like a confession practiced in the mirror. No apology. No, I'm sorry. Just that. I didn't burn it. I didn't tear it up. I just folded it in half and slipped it in a drawer next to my passport and the spare keys to my new apartment. A reminder, not of her, but of who I used to be. Because the thing about being gutted is that it leaves space. And I was starting to think about what I might do with all that room. One night, Nate came by, brought pizza, sat on the orange couch without making a single joke about it, which, from him, was the highest form of respect. "You heard from her?" he asked around a mouthful of pepperoni. "Sort of," I replied. He didn't ask for details. He just nodded, wiped his hands on his jeans, and cracked open a beer. After a while, he said, "You're doing better than I thought you would." I laughed. "You mean I haven't shaved my head or bought a motorcycle?" He smirked. "You always were annoyingly reasonable." I took a sip of my drink and looked out the window. The taco truck was still parked across the street, lights on, people lined up. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "Good. I'm just not sad either." Nate turned to me, brows raised. "Then what are you?" I thought for a second. Really thought. "Ready," I said. He clinked his bottle against mine. "Then let's see what that looks like." That night, after he left, I stood in my bare living room and looked around. Still no pictures. No decorations. Just the orange couch and a stack of pizza boxes and the steady hum of possibility. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't closure. It wasn't even healing. It was something else. Something quiet. Something steady. The beginning of something not built on apologies or promises or photo filters. Something real. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a placeholder in my own life. Somewhere around the 3rd week in the new apartment, I realized I hadn't checked her social media in days. Not once. Didn't even think about it. And that, more than any grand gesture or deep revelation, felt like a small kind of miracle. Tessa used to live online. If she wasn't uploading curated couple photos, she was accidentally being tagged in someone else's bachelorette brunch or rooftop yoga session. Every angle of her life staged like a magazine spread, with me in the background like a decorative lamp. Functional. Familiar. Forgettable. But lately, radio silence. Either she blocked me or the spotlight wasn't so flattering anymore. I didn't care which. That Friday, I got a call from an unknown number. I don't usually answer those, but I did this time. Good instinct, maybe. Or just curiosity in disguise. "Is this Albert?" the voice asked. The last person who used my full name was my mother, and she's been gone 7 years. "Yes," I said, already stiffening. "This is Melanie, Tessa's coworker. We met at your anniversary party a couple years back. I was the one who spilled wine on your blazer." "Right," I said, slowly. "How can I help you?" She hesitated. "I know this is weird, but she's not doing great. I mean, I'm not trying to get involved. I swear, but she talks about you. A lot. I didn't say anything. She told everyone it was just a break, that you needed space. But then last week she showed up late to a meeting, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She said she thinks she made a mistake. That word again. Mistake. Like she'd taken the wrong exit on the freeway, not shattered a marriage like glass. Melanie continued. I only called because she's not the same. And I think she's afraid to reach out again. She's convinced you'll never forgive her. She's right, I said. Silence. Well, Melanie finally replied. I guess that's fair. She hung up before I could say more. I stood in the kitchen for a long time afterward, staring at the counter where I'd left a half-eaten bagel. Still warm. Still untouched. Just like my patience. I didn't hate her. Not really. But I also didn't pity her. Because this wasn't about punishment. This was about math. You can't subtract respect, loyalty, and truth and expect the relationship to balance out. At some point, even love starts bouncing checks. That night, I pulled out the drawer with the photo she sent. The one from our honeymoon, folded neatly like a memory too stubborn to tear. I looked at it again. Not at her, but at me. The man in that photo. The guy who still believed in her laugh, in her promises, in the way she held his hand like it meant something permanent. I didn't recognize him anymore. And that was a good thing. He was soft in ways I could never be again. The next morning, a letter arrived. No return address, but I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. Tessa. The envelope was heavy. Expensive. The kind of paper you buy when you're trying to look like a grown-up about your regrets. Inside, 3 pages. Lined, handwritten, bleeding emotion in every curve of ink. She said she missed me. Said she didn't know how empty the house would feel without my quiet routines. That the kitchen didn't smell like coffee anymore. That her new life felt like a set she'd accidentally wandered onto. She didn't mention Rory by name. Just called him a distraction that turned into a mistake. There it was again. That word. She said she still loved me. That she always had. But she never said sorry. That's the part that stuck. 3 pages of metaphors and melancholy, and not once did she say the word. Apology was a bridge she refused to cross. Maybe because it meant admitting she burned it in the first place. I folded the letter and slid it into the same drawer as the photo. Then I wrote a note of my own. 1 sentence. Some things can be missed without being wanted back. I mailed it the next day. No return address. No signature. She'd know. A week later, Carly messaged again. Whatever you said to her, she wrote, it worked. Or broke her. Not sure which. But she left her job. Moved out of the house. Canceled the wedding. I stared at the screen, unmoved. Then I texted back. She canceled our marriage first. The rest was just cleanup. Carly didn't reply. And that was fine. Because it wasn't about an audience anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone to pat me on the back or validate my hurt. I had done what I came to do. I had left. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that kind of exit? It's not the kind you announce. It's the kind you execute. I started running again. Not for fitness, not for the cliche of reclaiming myself, but because there was something about the rhythm, 1 foot in front of the other, no room for questions, that made sense in a world where nothing else did. The road didn't lie to me. The road didn't promise forever and then give someone else my half of the bed. One morning, while jogging past the lake, I saw a couple sitting on a bench, laughing, legs tangled. And for the first time in months, I didn't flinch. I didn't think of Tessa. I didn't think of us. I just thought, good for them. And then I ran past them like a man finally running towards something instead of away. That weekend, I got invited to a dinner party. Nate's idea. Casual, friendly, harmless. He introduced me to a woman named Jordan. Smart. Funny. Didn't ask about my past. Didn't flinch when I said I'd recently moved on from something complicated. She told me she used to collect vinyl records, but not for the sound, just because she liked the weight of them. They feel like proof, she said. Like the music exists even when you're not listening. I nodded, smiling. Some people were like that. Weighted. Real. Quietly permanent. Tessa had been a stream, always moving, always performing, but impossible to hold on to. Jordan? She felt like vinyl. When I got home, I sat on the orange couch and listened to nothing. No music. No TV. Just silence. It didn't feel empty anymore. A month passed. Then 2. Tessa never contacted me again. The old house went up for rent. A for lease sign stood in the yard like a tombstone. I drove by once, just once, and saw it completely empty. No lights. No laughter. No curated Instagram moments. It looked smaller than I remembered. I parked down the street and sat in my car for 10 minutes, watching it like an old battlefield. No ghosts came. Just a faint, cold breeze and the sound of a plastic bag catching on a branch. I never went back. One evening, Jordan and I had drinks on the patio of a quiet bar. She leaned forward and asked me what I'd learned from it all. I paused, took a sip of my beer. That love without honesty is just performance, I said. And silence? Silence can be a scalpel or a shield. She nodded, like she understood. Then she smiled. So what are you now? A surgeon or a survivor? Neither, I said. Just a man who knows how to leave when the house catches fire. Jordan laughed. Not the kind of laugh that tries to cover tension. Just a soft, honest sound. Later that night, I checked the drawer one last time. The photo. The letter. Still there. I pulled them out. Stared at them. Then I took them to the kitchen sink and watched as water turned them into pulp. Not anger. Just cleanup. Some stories don't deserve archives. It didn't end with a bang. There was no final confrontation. No big apology. No dramatic monologue under rain-soaked streetlights. It ended the way most things truly end, quietly. Tessa faded. The wedding that never was disappeared from conversations. Her name stopped coming up. And me? I stopped being a character in her story. Because I had started writing my own. The revenge? It wasn't fire. It wasn't fury. It was presence. Being here. Living better, not out of spite, but out of clarity. The final move wasn't loud. It was deliberate. Subtle. I married silence and made peace my witness. And when people ask what happened between us, I just say, she left first. I just followed. They usually nod, like they know what that means. But most don't. Most think leaving is the climax. But sometimes, it's the beginning. Sometimes, disappearing isn't running. It's arriving, just somewhere better. Somewhere that smells like fresh coffee and second chances. Somewhere I finally recognize the man in the mirror. He's older, sharper, lighter. And when he folds his socks, it's not out of habit. It's because he likes the way order feels now. No one tells him he's boring. And no one calls that a mistake.